Good evening, everyone. I'm Grant Cunningham, and welcome to Training Talk here on Personal Defense Network. This is the show where we talk about you, about your life, and how to protect it. In the next hour, we're going to explore how you can prepare and equip yourself to face that worst-case scenario and have your family come out, you and your family come out the other side unharmed. Now, this is election time. There's a lot of politics in the air, but on this show, we don't do politics or religion. You're not going to hear fringe commentary or crazy conspiracy theories, just reliable information that you can put to use right now. Now, if you're new to the show, welcome. I'm glad you're here. But if you've been here before, if you would please, if you like what we're doing, this reasonable and responsible approach to personal safety and self-defense, I'd appreciate it if you share the show with your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, your coworkers, your dentist, your podiatrist, all of those people who can take value from the kind of preparedness and self-defense and personal security information that we do here. So if you would share it around all your social media, on Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and all that kind of stuff, I'd certainly appreciate it. And you know something? I know your friends will too. They'll probably even thank you for it. Isn't that wonderful? So thank you for tuning in. And again, if you're new here, welcome to the show. Again, this is a little different show, a little different self-defense show. We're not really, we don't really do the kind of macho testosterone thing here. We talk about reasonable and responsible approaches to self-defense, including firearms, sometimes not including firearms, because the gun is not the only thing we use to defend ourselves. So this is going to be a great show. I've got a special guest tonight, and we'll get to him in a few minutes, but got a special guest tonight, and I wanted to show you something. See, now my guest, I've known my guest tonight, Joshua Gideon, for a while now, and he, a while back, some years ago, he dubbed me the original tactical hippie. Complete with logo. I mean, I've got a logo for it and everything. If you look me up on Facebook, you'll see the logo, the original tactical hippie logo. So we got together here a couple months ago at the NRA show in Louisville, Kentucky, and he gave me something, and I wanted to show you this because I'm going to be using this on the show from now on. He gave me this thing, and I want you to see here. I don't know if you can see that, but here we go. The original tactical hippie water bottle that he gave me here. So this is really great. So thank you, Joshua, for this. I'm going to be drinking some delicious cold water. And I just got some all over my face, but that's okay. So thank you for that. And you'll be seeing this on future shows, the original tactical hippie water bottle. You will be seeing this. Is going to be a fixture. So anyhow, tonight we're going to be talking with Joshua about an article that he recently put here on Personal Defense Network about defensive shooting for the disabled, and it's going to be a great discussion. Before we get into that, though, I want to call your attention to the Personal Defense Network free newsletter. I'm going to screen share this here, and let's see here. Pull up this. For those of you who are new here, maybe haven't seen this yet, but if you go to the Personal Defense Network website, and here's the website, and usually it comes up with this pop-up thing that says 280,000 strong and serious about your safety. Sign up for the free Personal Defense Network newsletter. And this is a free newsletter, comes out generally about once a week. And by the way, there are more than 280,000. It's well over 300,000 people now taking advantage of all of the great free information here on Personal Defense Network. And we do have just a ton of great free information here that you can access. Their free videos, free articles, all kinds of stuff. But if you sign up for the free newsletter, if you click on this sign me up thing, it'll take you, you can put your email address in. If you dismiss that and you later decide, I really would like to take advantage of that free newsletter, find the Stay Connected box that's on just about every page on the site, put in your email address there, hit the sign up button there, and you'll be signed up for the free newsletter. We make it easy to get on and more importantly, easy to get off. If you decide later that it's not for you, we make it easy to unsubscribe, not a big deal. But this will come out every week and tell you what's new on Personal Defense Network. It'll tell you about this show. It'll alert you when this show is coming on so that you have enough time to sit down and get prepared to watch Training Talk, plus all the other great things. You know, our executive editor, Rob Pincus, does a monthly live show where he answers questions and it'll alert you about that so that you know that's coming up. So just a lot of great reasons to sign up for the PDN newsletter. And again, it's free. Just sign up and you'll get that in your email box every week. I get it in my email box, believe it or not, so that I can keep up on what's going on at Personal Defense Network. Because, you know, let's see here, stop screen sharing, there we go. So that I know what's going on. So it works out really well even for me because there's just so much always being added here at Personal Defense Network that I have trouble keeping track of what's new and what's exciting. The PDN newsletter helps me do that. So anyway, let's get to our guest tonight because my guest, Joshua Gideon, has a company called No Soft Targets, and he is a personal defense trainer with a rather unusual background in the personal defense world. He comes from the world of executive protection and cybersecurity and all that stuff. So he's got a very different viewpoint on personal defense and self-defense training and all that kind of thing. And it's a much more low-key approach than some of us who come at it from the gun world have, and a very, very thoughtful approach. And he recently wrote an article, and I'll show you this here because I think this is really cool. I'm going to present this to everybody here. And take a look at this article that he wrote, Disabled Shooting. And and I'll have a link to this in the show notes, but if you go to the Personal Defense Network website, hit articles, recent articles, I think it's at the top or very close to the top. And it's a neat article. So we're going to be discussing that. We're going to be discussing disabled shooting and disabled self-defense tonight, and taking advantage of Joshua's unique approach. So Joshua Gideon, welcome to Training Talk here on Personal Defense Network.
Well, thank you, Grant. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for coming. It's great to have you. And like I said, you bring a very different viewpoint to the world of self-defense that I think we can really use a lot of times, because I think some of us maybe from the gun side get sometimes a little carried away. Do you think?
Absolutely.
So you wrote this article, and I want to kind of just very quickly recap what this article is about, because I want to get into the discussion. But you wrote this article called Disabled Shooting, and it was about a family friend of yours, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
Who was having trouble being able to shoot a firearm and defend himself. And you found some solutions to his problems that got him back to the point where he could effectively defend himself with his defensive firearm, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A family friend, he contacted me wanting to know if there was anything that he could do with his current defensive firearm. Had lost some mobility in his hands, and due to a muscular disease, and as that disease had progressed, it was very challenging for him to function the semi-automatic handgun that he had. So we started looking into some solutions, and really started with exactly what the problem, what his physical limitation was, and what the extent of that limitation was. And I think that's really important, because just because you have a limitation doesn't mean that you don't have some capability there. And I think sometimes people throw the baby out with the bathwater there, and and kind of go down that road of, well, I just can't do this. So
Right.
they just give up. So we dug in a little bit deeper into that and found a solution for him.
So now we'll get right into it, because in your opening paragraph here, you said that that you were his last resort, which is an interesting thing. Do you think that shows the defensive training world, and I mean the whole world in general, really doesn't know how to deal with students or with people that come to them with disabilities?
Oh, certainly. I they don't cater to them, that's for sure.
So how did you cater to this fellow? How did you help him with the problem that he was having?
Well, I actually had a former student who is a doctor that kind of specializes in this type of disease, and just called him up and said, "Hey, tell me everything you can tell me in the next 30 minutes on this particular disease." And so he kind of gave me the Cliff Notes version that I could understand, and we found that. With his particular problem, it was sustained strength that he had issues with. So a short burst of strength he could still do, but it was that long, like for instance, a long trigger pull, long heavy trigger pull, that he just couldn't do that. But he could get a heavy trigger pull that was a shorter trigger pull. And so that's basically what we did. We found a revolver, mainly because he had trouble loading magazines, and that functionality was just not there anymore. So revolver he could load, fairly easily. So we just found a solution there. But it wasn't just hardware either. I also had some one-on-one time with him, virtual, just like this, where I was able to talk to him about different techniques that he could use to help his shooting ability. So.
Now, you ended up actually taking his revolver to a gunsmith and having the gun modified, correct, so that he could actually operate it.
Yeah. We fortunately we had some people who had heard about his situation, and several people donated some money, and we ended up actually getting him the gun and gifting it to him. So,
oh, no kidding.
So he was extremely surprised, and it was really nice.
Oh, that's very cool. Now, in this whole process, and again, folks can read about it in the article, in this whole process, I mean, you called up this doctor and you spent time on the phone with this doctor. I mean, you did a lot of research. I think is a good way to put it. You did a lot of research to get to the solutions for this fellow that he really needed. And this is something that I just don't hear very much about in the defensive training world. You just don't hear about a lot of people spending the time and the effort to do this sort of base research to get to what they need. Why do you think that doesn't happen very often in this whole business?
It's hard. It's difficult. It takes a lot of time, and if you have a class full of 16 people and you're spending, half an hour to an hour on each one trying to help them find a solution, it's not very profitable.
I would hate to say that, I would hate to say that it's all about money, but in a lot of cases, do you think people look at it and say, well, there's not enough return for me to bother with this guy?
I think so. I think that is the case. Unfortunately, I do.
Do you think that's true? For instance, let's say somebody shows up for a class, maybe they're in a wheelchair or something. Uh, do you, do you think that people put less effort a lot of times in with them and concentrate on the students that, they feel they can make some progress with?
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, they have to find an ADA compliant range that they can actually get their wheelchair on.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. That's very difficult to find. If they do find that, instructors that know how to deal with that, that it's even fewer.
Mhm.
And I think I think that it's easier to deal with the bigger group and put more time into them than it is to take time away from that entire class and focus on that other individual. You know, and I think there is a good case to be made with having almost a dedicated class for people that do have that are aging or disabled. That where you can actually spend the time focused on the things that are important to them and cater to them a little bit, if that makes sense.
Right. And you pointed out in the story that this fellow, I would say that he had a history of living a self-reliant lifestyle. Is
Oh yeah.
that fair? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And which no doubt helped him in the mindset part of this whole thing. But what about the person, the disabled person who maybe hasn't led that kind of lifestyle, and they sort of find themselves in this position where they become aware of their vulnerability. Sometimes, and I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but sometimes infirmities get the better of people's emotional condition. I think that happens in a lot of cases. Can they still be helped? Are there still things that they can do to learn to defend themselves?
Yeah, this particular person was, a Vietnam veteran, very self-reliant, strong, very well looked up to, as a role model on, someone who's self-reliant and able to defend themselves. And to see even somebody like that get to the point where they are out of options, I think it can happen to anybody. And it sneaks up, especially on our elderly folks. They're self-reliant and good. I have had several emails from people who have told me, I'm, 65, 67, 70, and I was great up until the point that this happened, and now they're struggling with the emotional side of it, the loss of comfort that they had in being able to protect themselves. And, I don't think that's unique to any individual person, or any background there.
I understand that. I'm only in my mid-50s, and yet, at this relatively tender age, I'm starting to feel, things. I don't heal as quickly as I used to. I don't. I don't. I find it much harder to keep my weight in check, and all this other stuff that happens as we age. I mean, it goes beyond needing bifocals and losing all my hair. But interestingly enough, age isn't necessarily an indicator of ability, is it? I mean, these lessons would apply equally to a younger person who, because of disease or accident, might find themselves facing the same kind of disability. Isn't that true?
Oh, absolutely. Look at it. We've had, how many wars in the past few years, and people coming back who are missing limbs, and, strong,
Mhm.
brave people that are now dealing with that sense of, having to rely on other people. And, that's, we're it could happen to any of us at any time.
And let's face it, any individual infirmity is going to be just that. It's going to be individual, because there are so many different ways in which the human body can suffer, function issues. And so this stuff almost sort of has to be done on an individual case-by-case basis, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think there are ways that we can kind of group things together, but everybody, everyone's individual mobility is a little bit different. Everyone's individual limitations are a little bit different. Just because you're in a wheelchair, take two people in a wheelchair, well, one person may have a better mobility than the other person, or have some limitations that the other person doesn't have.
Right.
So it does have to kind of be taken as on a case-by-case basis.
Now, you structured this article in such a way that you separated the hardware and mechanical parts of it from the software and training parts of it. So
Absolutely.
we talked a little bit about the hardware and the things that you did. What are some of the lessons you learned in terms of the hardware part of this from dealing with with this fellow and his issues? What were the takeaways for you?
A misconception on what accuracy is.
Really?
Yeah, I think that somebody, especially this particular person, was caught up in shooting bullseye type shooting, and making little bitty small groups, and didn't realize that those that balance of speed and precision there can allow them to shoot still combat accurately at plausible distances. And once they figured that out and they saw that, kind of saw that evidence, it was eye-opening to them. And the hardware that they thought wasn't working for them, maybe it did.
So he needed to really gain confidence in the hardware as much as anything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's very common.
Now, so you made these changes to the gun so that he could shoot it. Somebody else might need something completely different in terms of hardware adaptations, correct?
Sure.
Because obviously this fellow had a sort of a very specific disease and a very specific lack of function that you had to work around.
Yeah. I've had several, since the article, I've had just tons of email coming in, and people asking questions on the actual article comments and everything, kind of asking for advice on this. And, I've encountered people who, sights are a big issue. What should they put? What kind of sight should they have? I can't see my sights, that kind of question. And, I try to, there's a fine line between software and hardware there, and, I try to encourage them to look at it from an intuitive sight of fire perspective. And then obviously, because you do need sights at some point, as the target dictates. So you look at something that's a little bit more visible. Some of the Ameriglow sights and the big green squares and stuff like that seem to be something that people can see a little bit easier as their eyes start to age. So,
did it surprise you that the revolver turned out to be the answer in this case?
A little. And I went into it completely unbiased. I'm a revolver guy. I like revolvers. You know that. Right. And so I tried to have as little bias as possible into that decision, but and let the conditions dictate, without any emotion involved. Let the conditions dictate what this person needed, because besides, it was a gun for that person. It had nothing to do with me. So
Right.
so we as I kind of work things out, one thing that I found that was kind of interesting for him is he had some numbness in his fingertips. And a large semi-automatic firearm was hard for him to manipulate because of that. Where a revolver that had a smaller, thinner grip area fit in his hand in the areas where he actually had some feeling still.
Wow.
So it kind of, like I said, the hardware just, the conditions dictated the hardware. I tried not to have any bias involved in that.
That's interesting, because I think a lot of times we do sort of let our equipment biases override maybe the individual needs of the student, and I see that quite a bit, actually. And we see the opposite of this when we have people who sort of reflexively sell lightweight snub-nose revolvers to women because they perceive that as a women's gun. It's the same thing in reverse, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so the fact that you let the circumstances of the fellow's infirmity dictate the hardware, I think, is an important lesson for anybody actually watching this.
Especially the people behind the gun counter.
Right. Now, this is going to be I've got an interesting question. And I'm unsure exactly how to phrase this, but
okay,
how much does our own sort of instructional testosterone affect our recommendations to students? Now, what I mean by that is that we say things like friends don't let friends carry mouse guns and that kind of nonsense. And for instance, a mutual friend of ours, Greg Ellifritz, is a great instructor in Ohio, who's a big, young, hulking guy, police officer, recently announced on his Facebook page that he's had surgery and he finds himself unable to carry or shoot anything other than a .22 Magnum revolver, which is very light and has very little recoil. And so he's found that, well, that's what he can carry until he heals up from his recent surgeries. Right. And we, like I said, we say this kind of stuff like friends carry mouse guns. And are we allowing the notion of what's best to interfere with what's good enough or what the student needs under the circumstances?
It's a good question. I think that it's good to have standards. It's good to have a template that says this is the most efficient way to do something. We've proven that this is the most efficient way to do something. Mm-hmm. As long as we have the understanding that that's the most efficient way under normal circumstances with normal people. Right. 48.9 million people have some sort of disability or limitation. It's nearly 20% of the population here in the U.S. So yeah, we have this standard that we should fit everything into, but there has to be some compromise for those people that can't fit into that template. We can't be so rigid and think inside of a box that we don't consider the compromises that are necessary for some people. 22 Magnum, that's a wonderful round, good option. Nothing wrong with that. Would I rather him carry good striker fire 9mm? Absolutely. But under those circumstances, he's doing the best he can with his limitation. And we shouldn't look down on people because of that.
And that's why I phrase that the way I did, because I think sometimes we get, and you see it in social media all the time, where people will talk rather derisively sometimes about caliber or gun choices that are not up to their standards. Well, that's not a fighting caliber and stuff like this. And another mutual friend of ours, Claude Warner, talks all the time about the number of cases that he's investigated where, these things really actually did the job. So maybe we should reconsider it, with the understanding that maybe they're not ideal or optimal, but they work.
Right. Absolutely. There are self-defense options that go beyond a gun that still work.
Right.
Would we put things inside of a box and deal in absolutes? I think we can run ourselves into problems there.
Part of this adaptation that you prescribe, and I'm going to use the term prescribed because I think that's a really good term here. The adaptation that you prescribed for this fellow, did it include, because he ended up with a .38 caliber revolver, and did you give him some ideas about what ammunition he should use to, to go along with this?
Yeah. In fact, I suggested that he work his way up to what he could handle. Go with the lightest load 38s that he could find, and then work his way up. And ideally, if he can shoot 38 plus Ps, if that's what he can shoot, great. And as it turned out, he could.
Okay.
Where I might have dismissed that, in fact, I did. I really did. Honestly, I dismissed him being able to shoot plus Ps out of that gun, because I didn't think that his limitations, and it was dumb luck that I said, start at the smallest and go up, and he sends me a message saying, hey, and I shot plus Ps out of it. I'm going, whoa. So I think there's we have to be careful about our biases.
I'm glad you used that term dismissive, because when I first read the article, and as you know, and probably a lot of viewers know, I'm a revolver guy from way back, but I've also said many times that the revolver is probably not the solution for most people for a variety of reasons. And so when I started reading this article and I see, okay, we're dealing with somebody with some infirmity, with some strength issues, and I sort of made up my mind just as I started to read the article, well, this guy doesn't need a revolver. This would be a bad choice. He needs, something else. And as it turned out, that was a bad assumption on my part, because I went into it with a bias and sort of dismiss the idea that this might be a viable solution for him.
Right. And I've had other people email me, and my mind went to a revolver because it sounded like a similar incident, a similar case. And after getting a little bit more information, I'm like, no, this is actually what you need. This is what you should look at. And I try to give some. When people email me, those who've emailed me can see that I try to give them multiple options. Give them some considerations to look at and things like that. And,
right.
It's not Josh's decision to make.
I ran into kind of a similar situation a number of years ago with a student who could certainly rack the slide on her semi-auto pistol, but grasping the slide in any of the normal ways that we grasp it put lateral pressure, like in this direction, right, on her joints, and it was just incredibly painful.
Hmm.
She didn't lack in terms of strength. I mean, she had, really good grip strength and that kind of
Right.
thing. But any sort of sideways pressure on those joints caused her extreme pain because of arthritis or bursitis or something.
Sure.
And she found in that particular case that the revolver was actually the choice for her. And again, for most people, when I hear strength issues, I think in terms of, well, let's just teach them proper technique. But
Hmm.
sometimes we have to think about, all these other sort of mechanical things that happen, right?
Right. And my personal view is let's start with the software,
Okay.
and you'll teach them the proper technique. If they still can't do it, then we deal with the hardware.
And I'm glad you mentioned software because that was sort of the second part of your article, talked about the software and the training part of it. What did you recommend for him in terms of software and training and practice?
Um, Intuitive sighted fire, you
Okay.
shooting at full extension, getting that gun out there, and that really, I think, helped him uh, a whole lot more than even the. We had the option to put different sights and stuff on there, and we didn't. Um, we went with just stock sights, and yeah, kind of to see see how he shot it,
Mhm.
and if he was still having issues with that, there were some options for that particular revolver that we could have put some different sights on it. But as it turned out, at 7 yards, he was able to, without really using his sights, it, with proper kinesthetic alignment, he was able to shoot proper groups at that plausible distance. You Now, as it turns out, he still has very good eyesight. So he was able to also get some really good accuracy out of that as well. So on the more accurate targets, and I just remembered I need to send him some combat focused shooting targets. So I had forgotten to do that. So, but the balance of speed and precision drill is a really good drill for that. And I think I think that helped him a lot.
Now, in some cases, not in this case, but in some cases, when we're dealing with people who have function issues, they might be able to find some off-the-shelf hardware that will fix the problem. A different gun, different caliber, something. So they may be able to find something off the shelf, but in terms of their training, there's really, if you have function issues, there's almost nothing off the shelf. The defensive educator needs to make some changes to fit to the student. What kinds of changes do you think a defensive educator needs to make to his or her curriculum? For instance, use this as an example, what are some of the changes he or she might need to make to accommodate this kind of a student?
Right. Well, a lot of instructors like to use a how do I put this? A law enforcement qualification course. Um, and a lot of those courses require people to do things that a young athletic police officer, prospective police officer can do, right? The young guy that's coming out of that's going through the academy, that it's geared towards them. And there are just some people that cannot get down on the ground on their knees and shoot at 25 yards. It's just not possible. So yeah, we're as instructors, we have to make some accommodation for those people. Uh, my father has Parkinson's, and he has been dealing with that for some time. And there's no way we might get him down there, and he could probably still shoot it because he's a very good shooter. But we'd have to help him up, and that's just not helpful for him. Now teaching him how to shoot with a cane, that's valuable. That's something that will really help him. And I think as instructors, we need to start looking at things like that. How, deployment from a wheelchair. I get those, I'm getting tons of emails from that. How do I carry in my wheelchair? How should I deploy? What happens if I get knocked out of my wheelchair? Those kind of things.
Right.
And as instructors, we just need to start looking at that and implementing that into our training program as we run across people that need that.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a moment.
Okay.
There are those in the defensive training world who would say that, listen, the threat that they face doesn't change just because they're disabled or that they have an infirmity, and that they need to suck it up, put on their big boy pants, and do and finish the course. Otherwise, if you can't get down to that kneeling position behind the barricade, by God, you don't get your diploma, and you'll never be able to defend yourself. So, suck it up. What would you say to those people in the industry that might take that sort of hardline approach?
They're what I like to call wrong.
Okay, that's going to be a quote. They're what I like to call wrong. I think that's.
I just don't think they get it. I don't think they. I think that they don't get the realities of self-defense for the entire population. Especially those who are, a person in a wheelchair isn't like you and me. They're a bigger target.
Oh yeah.
So we should be spending more time on helping them find ways to deal with limited mobility. A guy pulls a gun on me, I get to sidestep, I get to move out of the way. Guess what? The person in a wheelchair doesn't do that.
Right.
They're going to have to either use some sort of a shield or fight. So that to focus on something. Well, I mean, you and I have had this discussion about people getting way too focused on firearms,
right,
and not self-defense in general. And that. I hope people read that in that article, that it wasn't just about shooting, that there's more to it than that.
Right.
Especially for the people that are disabled and have limitations. From
an instructor development standpoint, how does instructor development in the defensive training world, and we'll speak really more specifically about the defensive shooting training world, but I think it's broadly applicable enough. But how does instructor development need to change to help the next generation of defensive educators address the needs of the disabled? Because there are going to be a lot more of them as my generation ages.
Yeah, that's the reality is, we have that baby boomer generation that's getting older and getting to that point where they're going to need this. I think some dedicated time should be focused on the types of issues, the types of ailments, the limitations that people have. Kind of work their way up from the feet up.
Right.
And kind of focus on each individual step along the way. If do they have walking abilities limitations? Do they have? Are they in a wheelchair? Are they? Do they use a cane, a walker? What is their? First of all, assessing those. Being able to deal with the discouragement that they have, that mindset piece. I think that's probably one of the biggest obstacles that they have to overcome. I can teach them the software, I can fix the hardware, but before they ever step into a class, I gotta help them, with that.
That sort of counseling, or that empathetic counseling.
And
Stuff that needs to
encouragement,
right.
Letting them know that I don't care if you are in a wheelchair, I can still teach you.
Right.
Don't make that your limitation. Get them past that obstacle. As instructors, from an instructor development standpoint, we need to deal with that. We need to really put some thought into how we help encourage people in those situations.
And that includes maybe a little bit of exposure to psychology and what happens in the minds of someone who finds themselves less able than they used to be.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'd like to hear more encouraging stories of people that have overcome this. Those who are disabled, and have all these obstacles against them, yet they got themselves into a class and they were able to stand right next to somebody else who was able to, who was doing the same or similar things.
Yeah.
And, that kind of stuff needs to be out there more.
So, and we'll kind of switch gears just a little bit, but on a semi-related note, one of the things that I think makes you sort of special in this business is that you take self-defense from the other side of the world, not the response side, but the sort of awareness and prevention and evasion side of it, because you're executive protection training. And that is that something that people who are disabled need more or less than those of us who aren't?
We all need it.
Okay.
But being a higher risk, I look at things from a risk perspective. That's my background, is risk management. And they are at a higher risk. They're more vulnerable. Okay. They have limitations that, because they have limitations, they have a higher risk level. Right. So because of that, they need to be aware of how close to cover they are. Mm-hmm. A person in a wheelchair can't move as fast. So they need to be able to get to cover quicker than maybe someone else. How close to the exits are they? Right. Things like that. They have to look at things. They have to plan ahead a little bit more maybe than what we do.
Okay.
I can walk into a restaurant and change my mind, and go, no, I'm not going to sit there. I'm going to sit over here. Waitress, can I sit over here? And 9 times out of 10, yeah, sure. A person in a wheelchair doesn't really have as much flexibility. Right. There may be wheelchair accessible tables that predetermine where they sit. Things like that. It's just, I think the awareness side is very important to them, and they should be spending a little bit more time on that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for discussing this whole topic of disabled shooting and your article, which, by the way, was really terrific. You want to stick around for a few minutes while we talk about the upcoming training tour?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Okay, great. So we're we're starting to wind down the spring training tour at Personal Defense Network now. And I want to bring up some of the rest of the courses that are coming, because the training tour is actually finally coming to the West Coast and swinging through my part of the country. And so I wanted to show everybody, and we're going to screen share this here so you can see what's going on. And hit that present to everybody button. And here is personaldefensenetwork.com. We go to training tour dates and locations. And it's already the first week of July here. And so we've got, there are a few courses coming up that are already, some of them already in progress. And we'll go out just a little bit into the next week, say about a week from now. And in Cesar, Illinois, Barrett Kendrick, who's a great instructor, Bear Code Training, is going to be in Illinois teaching 2-day defensive focus handgun. And in Las Vegas, Nevada on the 16th, my buddy Alessandro Padovani, and I've talked about Ale before. You guys have heard me. Everybody knows about how great Ale is. He's going to be doing his safer, faster knife fundamentals, and that's his flag. That's his specialty. He is the knife guy. And so if you're in anywhere near Las Vegas and you want good, relevant, practical knife skills and to understand the knife and its use in self-defense, Ale is your guy, and he'll be in Las Vegas on the 16th teaching that. Chris Fry is going to be teaching practical shotgun skills in Marietta, New York. And the shotgun is still a great home defense tool, family protection tool. And the shotgun is not dead, folks. And not because the vice president said it, but because it's right, Josh. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's still a great defensive tool. Fundamentals of combat focus shooting. Rob Pincus is going to be right here in Oregon, in Timber, Oregon, which is in the northwest part of the state, teaching fundamentals of combat focus shooting on the 16th of this month. And then in Waverly, Virginia, Derek Poole, and who's like twice my height, is going to be, and a great instructor. Derek's a great guy, teaching combat focused carbine. That's a 2-day course. And seriously, you see a picture, like I stand next to him, he's like twice my height. It's crazy. And Alessandro Padovani is going to be he's going to stay in Las Vegas for a few days on the 17th, teaching women's personal safety fundamentals, which is a great class. I've heard good reports from that class. Rob Pincus is going to be in Cesar, Illinois, teaching 1-day combat focused carbine. And I'm not sure this is correct because there are 2 entries for Cesar, Illinois for I think the same course. And Barrett Kendrick and Rob Pincus are both listed. I think Barrett is actually teaching that course because Rob's going to be here on the opposite side of the country. He's going to be here teaching in Bellingham, Washington. He's going to be 5 days in Bellingham teaching combat focused shooting instructor development. Now, it's an instructor level course. There are some prerequisites. Check what the prerequisites are. I've been through the combat focused shooting instructor development course, easily the best instructor development course because it's probably the only one that actually teaches people how to teach. It's a phenomenal course. Less than 50% of the people that take that course pass. It is not an automatic pass, and it doesn't matter. You can be the best shooter in the world, and if you don't know how to teach, you're not going to pass that course. But if you're serious about your instructor development, combat focused shooting instructor development is happening the 18th through the 22nd in Bellingham, Washington. And the 22nd, Alessandro Padovani, again, in Reno, Nevada this time. He's moving from Las Vegas to Reno and teaching, again, safer, faster knife defense skills. Chris Fry is going to be in Deerfield, New York on the 23rd, teaching practical concealed carry skills. And Ale Padovani is going to stay in Reno teaching defensive focus shooting for a day. And then Rob Pincus is going to be in Maple Falls, Washington, teaching fundamentals of combat focused shooting. Now, this is actually the final day, or the final day, essentially, of the instructor development class, where the instructors that he's taught get a chance to see and put their skills into action under the tutelage of Rob Pincus. It's a great class because the student gets a lot of different perspectives in one class. So that's what's coming up next for the next couple of weeks in the spring training tour here at Personal Defense Network. Be sure to check out, there we go. Be sure to check out all of the options there at Personal Defense Network, all the courses that are coming up, because there's some really great stuff happening in the next couple of weeks on the training tour. Remember, this happens every year. Every year we put together the training tour. I want to talk for just a minute about premium membership here at Personal Defense Network, because we've got, all the great free stuff that we have that you can access, all the free videos, all the free articles. But if you become a premium member, you have access to a whole lot more that you don't even see on the public side. On the membership side of the site, there are great full-length videos, great full-length access to courses, online courses that are there, all kinds of stuff that you just don't see on the public side of the site. And there's a lot of stuff on the membership side, the premium membership side of the site. Now, if you want to try out premium membership and see what it's like and get exposure to all that great stuff that's over there, I've got a deal for you. If you sign up for premium membership and you sign up, do everything, and in the discount box, put the code GRANT10. That's G-R-A-N-T, the number 1, the number 0, GRANT10, all one word. Put that in the discount box, and you'll get your first year membership and the Personal Defense Network premium membership for only $10. Now, it's usually $39.95. For $10, it's like 72% off. Josh is smarter than I am. He can probably calculate that in his head, but I think it's about 72% off your first year membership. So your first year membership is only $10. It gives you a chance to unlimited access to the premium. This is not some special, like, limited premium membership. This is full premium membership for $10 for your first year. And you get a chance to see all the stuff that Personal Defense Network has on the premium side of the site. And I've been a premium member since the beginning, and I haven't seen everything there. And I'm on the site all the time, and I haven't seen everything. There's just a lot of stuff there. Some stuff for me, some stuff from our contributors, a lot of stuff from Rob Pincus, our executive director. So tons of information on the premium side. Yours for $10. Put in the code GRANT10, G-R-A-N-T-10, and you'll get your first year membership for only $10. It's a great deal. So I want to talk for just a second where to find me and all that kind of thing. So, of course, please send me email at grant@grantcunningham.com. I'm always happy to hear from everybody. Of course, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter and all the other normal places. And, of course, I spend a lot of time right here at Personal Defense Network. And, of course, you can comment here at Personal Defense Network on the show page, and I try to respond to those comments as quickly as I can. It may take me a day sometimes, but feel free to comment. Don't forget the free newsletter, the $10 premium membership, GRANT10, G-R-A-N-T-10, and of course all the great upcoming classes. Now, our next Training Talk show is 2 weeks from tonight. That is the 21st of July. So that's the third Thursday. Remember, first and third Thursdays of every month. That's our next show. So please be sure to join me then, because it's going to be a great show. I'll have some great stuff for you. Joshua, how can people find you?
Well, they can find me on my author page on the Personal Defense Network, as well as on nosoftargets.com.
Great. And you're all over Facebook too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You got to do the social media these days, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the grams.
You're on Instagram too?
Hey, I'm even on Pinterest.
Oh, well, sweet. But are you on Flipboard?
No.
Well, I'm on Flipboard too.
So
I'm not on Instagram though. I'm not a hip young guy like you are. All right, Joshua, thanks so much for coming on the show and talking about your article. It was a great pleasure having you on, and thank you for all the insight that you provide.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and it was a good discussion.
Well, great, and we'll do it again here soon for your next article.
All right. I got a few in the hopper. So
okay, cool. All right. So everybody, thank you again for tuning in. And remember, if you enjoy what we're doing here and you enjoy this reasonable and responsible approach to self-defense, please do share it with your friends. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your relatives, your bookie. Tell everybody you know about Training Talk right here on Personal Defense Network. We'll see you for our next show, the third Thursday of this month, which is the 21st of July, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there. Thanks for tuning in.